Hey, what's up, everybody? I hope you guys are having a wonderful Thursday. And I just kind of wanted to sit here and really just like do my best because I feel like even I have let the raw emotions of everything kind of collapsing so fast at the end of this year kind of get the better of me where I'm not opening myself up to conversation as much as I should. And I want to make sure that I am because I do have my opinion on this whole situation with Baker and the future of Baker and all that and where the Browns should go. But I don't know if I've been fair enough to both sides of this argument that I've been criticizing, quite honestly. And I just wanted to give my take, and I think it's really important that us as Browns fans, I know we don't really have that much of an impact on the team, but I do think fans do have an impact on the pressure a team feels and where that pressure is. And I see people throwing that pressure all over the place, and I'm just interested to know why people feel certain ways about that pressure or if that pressure is being applied to the right place on this team. Now, the first area of this that I kind of want to talk about is this question that seems to be going around. And look, when things happen internally, they kind of externally throw themselves into the fan base. We saw this with the Odell Baker thing, right? Where there was stress from one side and stress from the other about each other, and it turned into a fan base war. And I'm seeing the same exact thing happen here with Baker Mayfield, the people who truly believe in him, and Kevin Stefanski, which is wild to me, right? Like, just because it was seen less than a year ago that Kevin Stefanski was a perfect pairing for Baker Mayfield. Like, that was how we talked about this whole situation. And now we're at a point to where it looks like this situation might be untenable for both sides and might not be able to continue on anymore for multiple reasons. And it looks like it might be mutual that they don't want to continue on here. So I think that jump that we have had this year has been humbling. It's been a learning moment for me, right? Because I didn't know that it could change this fast, this quickly, but it's most certainly did. And I see people arguing, right? Is it Baker's fault for staying in the whole year, or is it Kevin Stefanski's fault for allowing him to stay in there a whole year? And I don't know if that argument matters, in my opinion. I think that argument in many ways misses the point. And here's what I mean by that. Whether Baker wanted to stay in or not, whether Kevin wanted him in or not, I don't think if you tell Baker to sit the bench and get a surgery early in the year, I don't think that changes the result of this season. I don't think you win more games than you did this season. Quite frankly, I don't know if you lose more games than you did this season. Like, I think the season might be the same if he gets that surgery or if he doesn't get that surgery. I also don't think Baker Mayfield's future is changed on when he gets that surgery, right? If he gets that surgery right now, I think his future is going to be the exact same as if he would have got that surgery earlier in the year. There's no evidence of that surgery being something that can't be handled in the offseason. It's happened to multiple quarterbacks in years past of varying degrees of shoulder separation, throwing shoulder and non-shoulder, and almost every, if not every quarterback in the modern era, in modern medicine that's gotten that injury has been able to get that surgery in the offseason, come back the next year, and, health-wise, they're okay. So I don't know if the argument of when he gets this surgery matters because I don't know what that impacts, right? And I think the bigger question here is to the people on the Baker side of things, right? If you are on the Baker side of things, I have this question. Do you think the injury was so severe, so out the ordinary, that it completely dismisses all of the bad tape that Baker Mayfield put out this year. Because the one thing that I am not willing to leave up to debate with this whole conversation is that Baker Mayfield's 2021 tape is bad. That is not an opinion. That is an objective fact. The tape this year is bad. Like, we have to accept whether you think Baker is going to be good next year, whether you think Baker can bounce back. We have to admit, even if you say bounce back, you're admitting that the tape this year is bad. Quite frankly, his worst tape in his entire career. And that part of it is where I have a hard time going with the whole Baker side of things, right? Because I can buy that the labrum affected him. I could buy that he was worse because of the labrum. Like, it's obvious that the labrum affected him, right? He was pulling certain things. Baker Mayfield misses high. He doesn't normally miss behind as much as he did this year. And he most certainly doesn't miss on his throwing shoulder side of the field, which is where he was missing this year, more so than often. But where I draw the line is saying that because he had that injury, all of that tape gets dismissed. And quite frankly, there's enough bad this year for multiple reasons. Some of it is because of the labrum, but there's a lot of it that I don't think has much to do with the labrum, or if you're going to put it on the labrum, I think you're being a bit too charitable to Baker Mayfield at that point, right? The bad decision making, the holding on to the ball. I've seen people make the argument that, because he has the labrum injury, he's hesitating to throw the ball more. But I think that argument dismisses the fact that those things existed before Baker Mayfield had that labrum injury, right? Baker Mayfield pump faking, being hesitant to throw the football. These were things that I harped on about Baker Mayfield about in 2020. You know what I mean? And in 2019, and even at points in 2018, he was actually quick to get rid of the ball. 2019, halfway through the season, he threw so many interceptions that's when that problem started to manifest with him. But that's where I have an issue, right? Because some of these problems with Baker Mayfield, the new ones, yeah. But the new ones, I don't know, man. It seems like that might be 20% of the issue right now with Baker. A lot of the other problems are things that we've been kind of worried about with Baker Mayfield for a long time here, right? The interceptions, something we've been worried about. The turnovers, something we've been worried about. The holding on to the football too long, not being able to maneuver the pocket correctly. These are the things that have worried us about Baker Mayfield for quite a while before the labrum injury, and they looked really bad this year, those issues. So I don't know if I can just chalk this year up to the labrum. And honestly, you have to ask yourself, like, I know there are some people who watch this channel that are more or less fans of Baker Mayfield because they're OU fans, not necessarily Browns fans. And I get it, because OU doesn't really have a football affiliation. A lot of people cheer for the Cowboys, but it's an open market there. So, and Baker Mayfield's a beloved figure in Oklahoma, so they want to root for their boy, right? I get that. I'm not dogging anybody for doing that. I understand why that happens. But if you're a Baker Mayfield fan, you need to understand that a lot of the people here are Browns fans, and there is not an obligation to get things right with Baker Mayfield more so than there is an obligation to get things right with the entire team. And that's the question I have to ask myself. Like, is it worth it to sit here and roll the dice again on Baker Mayfield after, and let's not forget, 2 bad seasons with him? Is it worth it to roll the dice on him? Or would it be more worthwhile to hedge your bet by bringing in somebody to at least compete, if not replacing him as a starter? And I think this team's not at a point to where they can just go in blind on Baker Mayfield. And again, this is a second offense for Baker Mayfield. And that's where I'm going to roll into this whole conversation, because it seems like as soon as people started pointing the fingers at Baker Mayfield after the game, as many people pointed fingers back at Kevin Stefanski. And there's a lot of people wondering, hey, why isn't Kevin Stefanski getting the same blame that Baker Mayfield's getting? And I think there is a pretty simple answer to that. Kevin Stefanski's only been with the Browns for 2 years. He has had one excellent year where he won Coach of the Year, and we were all excited about him. And then he's had this year where he's probably going to win 7 or 8 games, right? 6-10, 7-9. It's going to be an under 500 year, or the equivalent of those under 500 years in the past. I know they played an extra game now, so it technically be 7-10 or 8-9. But it's those kind of seasons. It's definitely a disappointment given the talent on the team. It's about the same because you're so talented. This team is so talented that it's hard to only win 4 games with a team this talented. Like, you would have to legitimately do bad things to get to 4 wins with this team. So, 7-8 wins with this team is just about as bad as you could be on a competent level of bad. Like, I'm not talking about dysfunctional, awful bad, but like just regular competent bad, if that makes sense. This is about as bad as you could be. And people are wondering, hey, why Kevin Stefanski isn't getting more blame? And I'm just going to say this here. It's the same exact reason why after 2019, we were willing to move on from Freddie Kitchens and keep Baker Mayfield, right? Because there was only 2 years of evidence and we were going to roll with the more promising sample size, right? Whether you like it or not, this is Baker Mayfield's second offense. This is the second time, whether it's his fault or not. I'm not saying it's all his fault, but this is the second time that Baker Mayfield has been the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns on a team that had high aspirations, Super Bowl aspirations in the offseason, and they ended the year under 500. This is the second time a Baker Mayfield quarterback team has done that. This is the second time you could point to Baker Mayfield and say that his play was not great in those years that happened. So what that means is that this is a second offense for Baker Mayfield. That means the criticism is going to be harsher. It just is. And that's how it is. He's a 4th-year quarterback now, right? So, we're done giving this thing a chance, right? Like, people are done, seeing how it plays out in year 4. At year 4, people want wins or they don't want you on the team anymore. And that's where Baker Mayfield is at. Whether it's fair or not, I tend to think, it's his second offense, right? Like, it's Kevin's first, so Kevin's going to get some grace, considering he was the coach of the year, just like we gave Baker that grace because he broke the rookie touchdown record, right? We said, hey, 2019, we're going to say that's on we're going to say that's on Freddie, and we're going to throw that out the window, and we're going to give him a stable situation and see how that works out. Well, Kevin Stefanski gave him a stable situation, the same coach for 2 years. We thought he was going to make a jump. Again, like we thought he was going to make a jump after 2018, and he just fell flat on his face, right? Like the play was not good this year. It was very disappointing. And again, I don't know how much of this you can blame on the labor room, and I definitely don't think it's responsible to blame the whole mishap on the labor room. Like, if Baker Mayfield had 3 great years and then just 1 bad year, and it was the year he tore his labrum, I would be more open to that argument. But the fact that evidence does exist that Baker Mayfield can play bad for a long stretch of time, that makes it harder to buy that it's just this one thing that messed him up, because we've been saying that with Baker Mayfield for how long? And at some point, right, you have to be realistic. Can you really get by with the quarterback that nothing can go wrong around? Is that a way to go around? Like, nothing can go wrong? I understand Aaron Rodgers is a different comp, right? But even like a guy like Ryan Tannehill or Kirk Cousins or Derek Carr, things can go wrong around those guys and things can still be fine. Right now, I feel like if one offensive lineman goes down, if more than 2 wide receivers go down, if Baker gets an injury here or there, the whole thing's crashing down. And that's just not a sustainable way to build a team, in my opinion, is when it's that fragile. You know what I mean? Even if you do think he can come back and have a good year. And I'm on the record. I think Baker could probably play well, or will probably play well next year, right? For whatever team he's on, Browns or not, he's probably going to play well. But this whole cycle of him playing well, playing bad, playing well, playing bad has taken its toll on the people who have been on this team this entire time. And I think it's done enough damage that he can't be here. I think Baker's going to bounce around a lot in the league. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to be in the NFL for quite a while. He'll have some good years. He'll have some bad years. I think he's kind of on that Ryan Fitzpatrick trajectory, right? Where he's going to just be somewhere you could start for a year, somebody you could put in for a few games and you'll be all right. But, as far as making him your long-term starter, that's where you run into issues here. And that's basically kind of where I'm at with this whole Baker thing is I can't sit back after already going through this 2 times and tell myself the plan in the offseason at the quarterback position is going to be to trust Baker Mayfield. I feel like I've been burnt twice on trusting Baker Mayfield. The first time, hey man, I was eager to write that off. But the second time, I'm not so eager to do it, and I don't think that's such a great thing to do considering what you have on this team. I think you need to look at other options or hedge your bet a little bit because I know people talk about, hey, man, Baker could become the next Drew Brees. He could become the Atlanta Falcons with Brett Favre, right? You don't ever want to get rid of a quarterback and then he blossoms somewhere else, and those examples are valid, right? That can happen, but I think there are even more valid examples, right? You don't want to become the Chicago Bears when they hung on to Jay Cutler too long, right? Or the Denver Broncos when they hung on to Jay Cutler too long. And that kind of hampered their growth. You don't want to become the Chicago Bears when they hung on to Mitchell Trubisky too long and didn't have a plan to replace him when he fizzled out, right? You don't want to become one of those teams. You want to do something like Arizona did where they knew that Josh Rosen wasn't going to work, went straight to Kyler Murray, right? Or even the Rams to a point where they were out on Jared Goff, got themselves an upgrade and Matt Stafford, even though I don't think Matt Stafford's like the best quarterback. I think he's better than Jared Goff, right? Like what position do you want to find yourself? Are you okay with if the Browns ride this thing out with Baker Mayfield and it goes just as bad as it did this year? Like, are we okay with that? I'm not. I've seen enough to where I'm not sure if Baker Mayfield's done in Cleveland. I feel like he's done in Cleveland. It seems like he's done in Cleveland. But play-wise, I don't know if he can never produce for this team again. But I know I can't trust it. I know I can't trust it long-term. And once it gets to that point, the writing's on the wall, so to speak. So I understand, people want to hang on to him. People want to not look for another quarterback because we've been through hell. But I will offer this solace to anybody who is hesitant to get back in that conversation. Look, the reason the Browns were looking for 25 quarterbacks in those 25 years, or it's not 25 years, but in those 20 years, right, is because they had like 20 GMs. Like that's really a big cause of it. The instability in the front office and in the coaching staff was what caused that quarterback rotation, right? Because when you don't know what you're looking for, how can you find it? And that's what was going on with the Browns for that long. That's why we were looking that long. It don't take other teams that long, but it took the Browns that long because we never had a set ideal of what we were looking for at the quarterback position. So how in the hell were we going to find it, right? Like, no, we couldn't find it. We were blind out there just grabbing stuff and seeing if stuff's going to work here. This is a different situation. I think Kevin Stefanski, whether y'all like him or not, and look, no team loves their head coach, except for Bill Belichick. And even Bill Belichick has his detractors, especially when Bill Belichick was in Cleveland. So I understand nobody's going to 100% love their head coach, right? But I think Kevin Stefanski's going to be here for a while. I think Andrew Berry's definitely going to be here for a while. And when that's the situation that's looking for a new quarterback, it's not a team looking for a quarterback that doesn't know what they're looking for. It's a team that knows what they want, knows what traits they're looking for in a quarterback, and those teams can find somebody who can at least start. Right? They might not find a franchise quarterback this year or immediately, but they might find somebody who could be okay for the year, right? like Jalen Hurts is for the Eagles, right? And I think that's the one thing we're overlooking. I think so many of us are scared to go back to the pre-Baker Mayfield days where we had no stability at quarterback, and they think, hey, man, it's going to go straight back to that. And I'm thinking, I don't think that's necessarily a guarantee. I feel like, look at the drafts that Andrew Berry has had. Look at the drafts in the free agency pickups that Andrew Berry has had. I think he's proven himself as a pretty solid GM. And I think Kevin Stefanski, like, also we have to be honest about this, right? Kevin Stefanski's been an offensive coordinator for 2.5 years. Well, no, 1.5 years. And then he's the offensive head coach of the Cleveland Browns for these last 2 years. He's really only had one bad offensive season. He had a great year his interim year. He had a great year his first year as an offensive coordinator with the Minnesota Vikings. Kirk Cousins' numbers went up, was more efficient. Same thing happened to Baker Mayfield in 2020, and this year it was down. There is more evidence that tells me that Kevin Stefanski's probably a really good offensive mind, but things just went wrong this year. So I'm going to just take the chance on Kevin Stefanski with Baker Mayfield. Again, this is his second offense in the exact same way. And people are just going to have less leniency for that. People are going to have less grace for that. I think the bright side of this is that the Browns front office has a plan. I think Andrew Berry has locked up people in a strategic way just in case this happened with the quarterback position. And I think you have competent people in the front office, more competent than you've had in this franchise's history since they've come back in '99, that I don't think it's going to be the gargantuan task that it used to be to find somebody who could play quarterback for this team and can play at a competent level. I think they'll be able to do it. Not saying no disrespect to Baker Mayfield or anything like that. And I do think that, sometimes the conversation with Baker Mayfield, we get so wrapped up in the now and how bad he's been now that we forget that we should probably appreciate that this is a dude who did help elevate the franchise to at least this level, right? Where they're around 500 all the time. Like, that was never a guarantee in the past. We used to get happy if we got close to 500. I remember Baker Mayfield's first year, we were so excited to have a chance to be 500 at the end of the year. But he has definitely, I think he does deserve that credit for elevating the franchise, for getting them to a certain point, and for being somebody who was a clear inflection point of when the Browns were able to get that stabilization that they desperately needed to be in a position harshly to be able to replace him. And I think we're just at that point with the Cleveland Browns here, where what Baker can provide and the lack of consistency that he has kind of outweighs each other. And I think it becomes to a point to where it's better for the Cleveland Browns if they move on and try to find somebody else that can fill this role. And quite honestly, I feel like it's better for Baker Mayfield to move on from this situation because half the city hates him. And this is just not a positive. Like, he needs a fresh start. And I think he'll do well with the fresh start, but I just don't think it's happening here. But that's my thoughts on this whole situation. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know how you guys are feeling about this whole situation. Honestly, it's sad, right? We all kind of hoped that Baker was going to be that guy. We all had, dreams of Baker bringing home that Super Bowl. And we're at that point to where either we're going to hang on to the bitter end and tear what we have built these last 4 years down in pursuit of that, or risk that in pursuit of that, or we have to just let go of what feels like Browns fans' first long-term relationship with the quarterback in forever, right? It sucks, right? We've gotten used to Six being the quarterback and Baker Mayfield being out there and him being the starter and not having to worry about it and not having to care about a quarterback competition. We've gotten used to that, and I understand the fear of going back to that, but I think we are on much more stable ground to go back to that, to where I don't think we're going to be in the streets forever like we were in '99, because we just never had stable ground. But that's just my thoughts on that. I understand it's not a fun conversation for people to have, but I do think we need to have this conversation and have it in a less screechy way or preachy way than we've been having. And I think everybody's guilty. I'm guilty of sometimes being a little bit preachy about things. But I think it's a real conversation that needed to be had. But let me know again what you think in the comment section below. I want to thank you guys for sitting with me, chilling with me this whole season. I hope you guys hang with me throughout the off season. There's going to be a lot to talk about. So don't forget about your boy. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.